This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, if you ever want to get somebody really upset, like I'm talking really upset, you just let them know that they're paying more than anybody else for something. And the fact of the matter is, Albertans are paying more for auto insurance than anybody else in Canada. If you want to get them a little bit more upset, let them know that their costs are set to go up even more. And that's the case, presumably. Or is it? As Alberta's government gets set to lift its cap on auto insurance rate hikes. It's a story that's broken just this week, but it's been rumored for quite some time. And the entire time it's been bandied about, we've known that we were going to talk to injury lawyer Mark McCourt about it. He's made his whole career about this kind of stuff, and you're going to go, oh, let me guess. The injury lawyer doesn't love the idea that folks won't be able to sue each other after sustaining injuries in auto accidents. Big surprise. But here's the deal. Mark's thought this out. He's been a fierce advocate for auto insurance reform, but he thinks that this is a move in the wrong direction. You know, a publication actually named Mark one of Alberta's 50 most influential people for the work that he's done in this space years ago. And so he was the guy we figured we needed to talk to for at least one perspective on this story as it's developing. Mark joins us in 30 seconds. First, I want to remind you that this episode of Real Talk happens with the presenting sponsorship of Rello. That's Alberta's top online real estate school, online at rello.ca. That's where you can learn a little bit more about the Rello advantage. If you're considering a career in real estate, you love the idea of getting out of that office cubicle, unlimited earning potential, you're going to want to check out the advantages that they have. They've established themselves as the best in the business for a reason. The best of both worlds, qualifying for your real estate license, a fundamentals course, a practical course, and you're going to save money because you're hearing about it on this show. The code Ryan100, the promo code, all one word, is going to knock $100 off the residential and commercial real estate bundles. That's Ryan100 when you get started today at rello.ca. All right, so this has been reported this week by Jason Markusoff with the CBC. Alberta set to lift auto insurance rate cap. Rate increases were capped at just under 4% over the past year or so, and they're going to, well, take away your right to sue following auto accidents. Now, the sources say that if you're an Alberta driver, as if you need to be reminded of this, you're already paying some of the highest premiums in Canada, but lifting that cap presumably could lead to higher increases. Some are saying that auto insurance premiums could soar by as much as 85% or more over the next 10 years. Now, the government's claiming that this is going to stabilize the market. Insurers have wanted this for quite some time. They say, quite frankly, they can't afford to do business anymore if everybody's suing everybody else. Plus, it's getting more and more expensive to fix these vehicles. They say it'll reduce legal costs, obviously, and curb frivolous lawsuits. But critics say that it's a gift to insurers, shifting financial burdens onto everyday folks like you, and especially those that are deemed to be not good drivers. Plus, you lose the right to sue for certain claims. That could leave you with fewer options for fair compensation. So the advocates are arguing that this isn't just a money issue. It's about fairness. It's about accessibility. It's about trust in a system that, of course, right now is meant to protect all drivers. Kind of the point, right? With lawsuits tied to crashes up nearly 50% over 5 years ago, some say that reform is necessary. But the question is, who's really benefiting here? Is it the drivers or is it the insurers? Mark McCourt's worked in the Alberta Attorney General's Constitutional Law Department. He earned his law degree from the U of A, became a member of the Alberta Bar nearly 30 years ago, founded an auto accident injury law firm. That's McCourt Law Offices. This is his wheelhouse. And it's a pleasure to welcome Mark to Real Talk. Mark, thanks for making time for us. Thanks for hanging tight while we troubleshot some stuff this morning. It's nice
no problem.
It's nice to see your face, man. You've been writing about this, you've been forecasting this, you've been predicting this, and you've been commenting on this for years already. Are people that are working in your space, in the injury law space, have they been expecting this for years?
Auto insurance reform in Alberta started 20 years ago with the minor injury regulation, and so I was pretty active back then, trying to make sure that the minor injury regulation regulated minor injuries only. And ironically, one individual that was very helpful in that fight was a Calgary Herald columnist at the time by the name of Danielle Smith.
Oh, really?
Who 21 years ago, when Pat Nelson was trying to reduce car insurance premiums for the young and the reckless, including her son at the time, was putting forward a proposal to cap at $4,000 compensation for injuries just short of catastrophic. And Danielle Smith, in a column in the Calgary Herald, said that would be immoral, and that people with serious injuries deserved compensation, and that reckless drivers should not be held blameless and be not held accountable for injuring people severely in motor vehicle accidents. And as the day after Danielle Smith's column, the government had a vote in caucus, and Pat Nelson's proposal was defeated, and she came back to the table about a year later with a minor injury regulation that capped pain and suffering compensation for sprains and strains and whiplash injuries that heal relatively quickly, and that regulation remains in place today. And so pretty much 5.5 years ago, right around April of 2019, auto insurance reform came to the fore again. You'll recall, Ryan, that I believe Jason Kenney was elected as the Premier of Alberta at that time, and his former chief of staff and the campaign manager for the UCP immediately became the chief lobbyist for the Insurance Bureau of Canada, along with Jason Kenney's former press secretary, who's the president of the Insurance Bureau of Canada. And they immediately went to work hand in hand with Premier Kenney, removed the rate cap that the NDP had put in place in the previous government from 2015 to 2019, and then tightened up the minor injury regulation, so expanded the number of claimants who would be captured by that, what's now roughly a $6,000 cap. So since 2019, auto insurance premiums in Alberta have gone up roughly 35%. And by the way, bodily injury claims costs, which we hear are just out of control, they've actually dropped by about 8% since 2019. So the average payout per insured vehicle in Alberta in 2019 was $493 out of your car insurance premium. In 2023 it was $453, whereas as I say, premiums have gone up from about $800 in April of 2019. This is the compulsory premiums, up to about $1,080 in 2023.
Okay, so like half of what you bring to the table roughly is going to be based on your experience as an injury lawyer, and you can give half of this is going to be opinion, and then you're going to be giving us some statistics and some facts that are undeniable. But in your mind, how have the citizens been served? How has the industry been served by this? What do they call it? The soft tissue injury cap, the $6,000 or so. In other words, if you don't have like pretty serious and lasting damage, your take, your walk away is capped at about $6,000 after getting rear-ended by somebody. That's basically in layperson's terms what the deal is, right?
Yeah, to say the least. I was personally not a big fan of the minor injury cap when it came into place. I prosecute personal injury claims for a living. It cost me a lot of money over the last
huge
dollars.
dollars, like. I would imagine
But
huge dollars.
yeah, but as far as policyholders are concerned, what that did result in over the last 20 years are premiums that increased at far below the rate of inflation from 2004, when the minor injury regulation was put in place, to present. Now, as I mentioned, from 2004 to 2019, they were in check. Alberta's auto insurance premiums were in check pretty good. When the UCP government was elected and removed the rate cap, the premiums have hiked, quite significantly. As I say, if you look at overall premiums, including collision coverage, about 20% since 2019. If you look at strictly liability coverage, as I say, about 35%.
Mark, in your opinion, what is it that's driving up auto insurance rates? Like, a lot of people probably are looking to like public systems, right? Like ICBC, or they look to Saskatchewan. There's some people in the chat here. I saw Seventh Pilot left a comment that said, I hate government-owned anything, but auto insurance is one I would support. Says Saskatchewan for years has had way cheaper rates. Talk to us about what's driving up costs, what's driving up prices in Alberta, in your opinion.
Sure. Well, I can tell you this, it is not bodily injury claims, because as they say, bodily injury claims costs over the last 5.5 years have gone down. Let's be honest. What it is simply this. Under the UCP government, insurance companies have just made a whole bunch more money. And in fairness, part of that was during the pandemic. Of course, people were driving less. That said, given that claims costs were down so much over the pandemic, premiums could have gone down, but they went the other direction. And so in a nutshell, that's the cause of increased premiums, is just that auto insurance companies decided that under this current government, they could make a whole bunch more money. And, it's deja vu all over again for me. 20 years ago, the insurance lobby was saying, man, we are just teetering on the brink of bankruptcy and we need your help. And in fact, they were making all-time high record profits. Here we are again. What's old is new again. And they are telling the bureaucrats in the finance department that, oh my gosh, we're having tough time making ends meet. By the way, the CEO of Intact Insurance, which has the largest market share of auto insurance providers in Alberta, the CEO eked out a $15.2 million remuneration package from Intact last year. So, you know what? They're getting by. And sadly on the backs of policyholders in Alberta.
Yeah, I mean, that's not what they're saying. Obviously, the company line is that they can barely afford to do business in Alberta right now. Insurers are saying that they're going to have to leave. I think the general public might buy into that or believe it a little bit more on the home insurance front when they see obviously what it costs to rebuild Jasper or rebuild Fort McMurray or something like that. But on the auto insurance front, I'm not sure. Cheryl's watching us live streaming right now on LinkedIn. She leaves a comment in our live chat presented by Park Power. She says, I can't imagine paying more for auto insurance. Says we have a 2018 minivan, a 2016 EV that we just bought. Cheryl says the annual renewal for both vehicles is going to be over $4,500 for auto insurance. She says that's almost half of what we paid for the second car. You get to the point where some people are just going to say this is unsustainable. Mark, what's your take on the claim that removing the right to sue reduces frivolous lawsuits and thus lowers premiums? I mean, some of it seems obvious if that happens, but this is your business.
Yeah, well, removing the right to sue would eliminate frivolous lawsuits.
Kind of screws people over as well, right? Removes
frivolous,
non-frivolous.
Let's be clear, and I put this on I think Twitter yesterday. I said what no fault insurance means is that a 7-year-old girl named Rebecca walking in a marked crosswalk and mowed down by some jackass who's texting while driving is entitled to no compensation for her injuries, okay, from that negligent driver's car insurance company. And fans of no fault, they'll say, well, my goodness, she didn't. It's not like that 7-year-old lost any income. And good Lord, her therapy costs for her mental trauma and for her physical injuries We're all covered by her own car insurance company. So what's she whining about? And the great news is that reckless driver, his rates under no fault are going to plummet. And so no fault insurance is great for insurance companies and for bad drivers. But good drivers under no fault will see their rates go up and their benefits go down and their rights removed. Bad drivers will see their rates plummet and their benefits, at least on paper, increase. So the roughly 20% of Albertans who support no fault probably coincide with the roughly 20% of Albertans who have a pretty bad record on the road.
Mark, what protections would you advocate for to ensure that injured drivers still have access to adequate medical and financial recovery options? Like, what do you think is a solution here?
Well, it's a good question because the reality is here, we're talking about a policy that the government has not announced yet. I think in question period yesterday, and a couple of NDP MLAs were questioning the government and kind of hammering the government about this, and the premier and the finance minister were saying, "Hey, we haven't told you the bad news yet, officially yet. Marcus off at CBC kind of leaked something, but wait until we actually say something." So the fact is, we don't know what the government's going to announce. It sounds like tomorrow. And maybe they're going to announce something that I will be able to come back and say, you know what, that's probably about what they should have done. And so, in my opinion, what the government could do, and Ryan, I'm a conservative in Edmonton, so I'm a rare bird, but I don't think that Alberta, frankly, has had an actually conservative government since Ralph Klein's first couple of terms in office, when he was slashing costs, public revenue or public expenses, and brought in that flat tax. But if this government was truly conservative, and economist Jack Mintz has indicated the same, frankly, for the last 2 decades, then they would stop being part of the problem here and start being part of the solution. They would remove the 4% premium insurance tax. And they would reverse that 60% hike in the healthcare recovery levy that was put on in auto insurers this year. If the government would do those 2 things, that alone would be able to bring rates down for good Alberta motorists. And I have a couple of other ideas. One is removing what's called the grid program, where good drivers artificially oversubsidize the rates of bad drivers. That's something that the insurance industry has suggested as well. And here's the one that when I discuss settlements with insurance companies for a living. That's what I've done for the last 33 years. And I wouldn't want to give this up, but it would result in some significant savings. 80%, and this is according to the insurance industry, 80% of claims are minor injury claims. If the government said, listen, we're going to take those minor injury claims that are capped currently under the minor injury regulation at about $6,000, we're going to take those out of the tort system. So if you suffer a minor injury, you no longer have the right to sue that other driver. And then you give Albertans the option of purchasing that coverage from their own car insurance company. That would probably reduce rates for the average good Alberta motorist by about $150 to $200 per year.
We got Alberta Ganger in our chat watching on YouTube. Says Premier Smith seems to be choosing the worst aspects of the insurance market and mashing them together. Justin wants clarification here. Maybe we need to circle back on this. He says, wait a second. How would bad drivers see their rates drop under no fault? He says that doesn't seem to make any sense. Can you lay it out for us, Mark?
Yep. The way that finance bureaucrats are telling the caucus, UCP caucus, that this is going to reduce rates for the average Alberta motorist is this way. Under no fault insurance, bad drivers are no longer accountable for the carnage that they cause on the roads, and so because they no longer need to, because insurance companies no longer need to charge extremely high rates for liability insurance for bad drivers. The way that no fault can reduce the average Albertan's premium is in this manner. 80% of good drivers are going to see their rates go up a little bit, but the 20% of bad drivers who are paying, let's say, $5,000 a year plus, they're going to see their rates potentially cut in half. And when you take the average now of all of those drivers, then the average rate goes down. Of course, 80% of drivers will see their rates go up, but because bad drivers are paying so much and their rates will go down so much, then the average rate will go down. So, for example, 20 years ago, when the government of Alberta brought in the minor injury regulation, my insurance rates, and I'm a good driver, my insurance rates went down $2 a year. The bad drivers with 2 accidents in the last 3 years, their rates went down by 80%. So, if you are a bad driver, you should absolutely be cheerleading for this no fault switch, because your rates are going to go down. You're not going to be accountable for the carnage that you cause on the roads. The bad news, of course, is that under no fault, studies show that because there's less incentive to drive well, auto accidents, injuries, fatalities spike, and that causes an increase in rates. So it's a temporary reduction in premiums for any driver under a no-fault policy. And Ryan, right at the start when you were introducing me, you mentioned that Alberta has the highest rates in the country.
Yeah.
Pretty close. Ontario has the highest rates in the country. They have a privately delivered, primarily no-fault system.
Yeah.
And that's where they pay. That's where Ontario motorists pay the highest rates in the country. Under the system that Alberta might be bringing in their announcement tomorrow.
Did I give myself a way out? Usually I say something like Alberta is among the highest rates.
You did. Yes,
I give myself. Hey, Mark, by the way, fact check. You say you're a good driver. Everybody says they're a good driver. What's the last? Johnny and I always call each other the carpet on this. What's the last ticket you got, and what was it? What was it for? When was it? Give us the details.
My wife just hates the fact that every time I get pulled over by a cop,
yeah,
I use my lawyer tongue and somehow manage to sweet talk my way out of a ticket.
Give us a tip. What's the best thing to say? I've heard you're supposed to turn your vehicle off, put the keys on the dashboard, take your sunglasses off. They say that. Turn the music off, obviously. What else? I
don't know what the heck I didn't see that sign when it went from 100 to 80. I didn't see that sign, but my goodness me, if I had seen it, I absolutely would have slowed down. But it doesn't work all the time. The last ticket that I was written, sadly I did a bit of a rolling stop at a four-way stop. There was a police officer that wrote me a $407 ticket. That must have been, sometime in the last 4 years.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
$407. Geez.
Now I make sure that speedometer reads 0 before I proceed.
Live and learn, pal. Alberta Girl in our live chat, something along this. I've lost the chat because it's humming today. They're hitting us on all the platforms, which is great. Alberta Girl says something along the lines of, this is a great way to trim back on judges, and says injury lawyers will be fleeing the province. You've been doing this for a long time, Mark. To be gauche, you've already made your fortune. You're not too worried about it. But what about the younger lawyers in your profession? What about the future, the profession of injury law in Alberta? How do you expect this to kind of play out and impact what you do?
I think the government released a report earlier this year that said that job losses in the legal services industry was going to be somewhere around 800. Now, I believe that's probably 10% of the profession. I will be included amongst that group. I'm very hopeful that I can get my old warehouse job back at Tire Town.
Oh yeah.
But as for other members of the bar who don't have something like that to fall back on, Yeah, they may have to head out to the Maritimes, where all four maritime provinces, including Newfoundland, have tort law, and by the way, have much lower rates for the most part than not only Alberta, but for that matter, BC, Saskatchewan, or Manitoba. But it's not going to just affect lawyers. It's obviously going to affect bodily injury adjusters, insurance defense lawyers. And frankly, what I think it's also going to do is cause job losses 3 years from now in the United Conservative Caucus.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, and listen, like you know as well as I do, nobody's gonna feel sorry for like the injury lawyer that says, "Oh, I'm gonna lose my opportunity." What people care most about, and which I mean, you write about this all the time. People can check out your website, mccourtlaw.ca. You've got a ton of op-eds on this. You've contributed to Post Media papers. You've been writing about this for a long time, including this column we're showing June of last year. The headline: "Don't take away Alberta drivers' right to sue." What people care about most is what's going to impact their own bottom line, what's going to impact their family's bottom line. That's what most people care about. This could be question number one, or it could be the wrap-up. We'll make it the wrap-up, but I mean, you have your own political opinions, you have your own political leanings, you have your own market convictions. You're highly entertaining on social media. I encourage people to follow you. I love your posts. You look like you mix a mean martini, by the way. I enjoy your martini posts setting into the weekend.
That's true. That's very true.
But politically speaking, industry-wise and otherwise, do you think Alberta would be well served, hypothetically, to consider what they do in BC and Saskatchewan to have sort of a public system? Could you see that rolling out in a province like Alberta?
As a matter of fact, about 6 months ago, I predicted that if the UCP government decides to bring in privately delivered no fault, that it's basically mutually assured destruction for my industry, personal injury lawyers, for the UCP government itself, and ultimately for the private auto insurance industry in Alberta. Because what's going to happen is if the government makes an announcement that they're bringing in privately delivered no fault tomorrow, that injury lawyers are going to lose their jobs. Rates are going to go up for good drivers, and their benefits are going to disappear, or their rights are going to disappear. That's not going to be popular with good Alberta motorists, and polls already show that Albertans overwhelmingly do not support no fault, and so the UCP government is going to be defeated 3 years from now, and Premier Nenshi is going to bring in public auto insurance, and out go the private auto insurers in Alberta. And so 1, 2, 3, we're all gone.
Interesting to hear you predict the downfall of the UCP. Like, you are an ardent conservative supporter. I know that. But part of me thinks you're just trying to light a fire under your government of choice right now. But are you saying that you think you're predicting that Smith, who just secured a 91+% support, sort of like a resounding mandate from party members at the AGM, and has sort of popularity, perceived or otherwise, across the province, you really think that this or this and something else would be enough to turn her political fortunes around and torch her government in the next 3 years? You really think it's that big of a deal?
I said in a newspaper column earlier this month that she got roughly 4,200 people voted thumbs up to her, and she only needs to increase that by about 20,000% to win the next provincial election. It's a weird thing, and economist Jack Mintz has mentioned this, and I feel the same way. It's such a weird thing that auto insurance can be such a major issue, but these funny pocket, because it's a small amount of the average Albertan's after tax payouts, expenses. That said, history has shown that elections can be won or lost over this auto insurance issue. The NDP in BC came within a whisker of losing because of all of the horror stories that are coming out of British Columbia with people who have been screwed, frankly, under this no-fault system that the BC NDP brought in 2021.
Yeah. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you. You know, I've been looking for an opportunity to get you here on the show for quite some time. Again, highly entertaining, but also, you have the respect of your peers, that's for sure. People can read your op-eds and everything else. Find you at mccourtlaw.ca. We've been talking to veteran injury lawyer and one of Alberta's top 50 most influential people, so says Alberta Venture Magazine, for his work in this space. Mark McCourt. Chat again soon, pal.
Good seeing you again, Ron.
Yeah, good to see you too. I love this, and I love the way that Mark writes. Let me just read this. You might say, like, oh, a lawyer has a blog. What is it? Bob Loblaw's law blog. Do you remember that? Bob Loblaw has a law blog. You remember that? Well,
He's a real guy.
Mark McCourt also has a law blog. And I recommend that you read it at mccourtlaw.ca. But he's got as you might have assumed, he does great, obviously, in interviews. And I love the way he writes. I wanted to read this. I highlighted it. Quote from Mark McCourt. Quote, even though 80% of Alberta policyholders see their rates rise, the bad drivers, he's talking about in this, prognosticated scenario that Jason Markusoff has broken the story on. Real Talk is ahead of this story. This is expected later this week. Mark says the bad drivers see rate reductions just like that. Alberta's finance minister, Nate Horner's bevy of blatantly biased bean counter bureaucrats can brag that the UCP government has reduced the average Albertan's auto insurance premium down to $1,344 a year. Holy moly, writes Mark. That's an average reduction of $325 a year, nearly a 20% drop. Well, good luck selling that sack of crap to Albertans 3 years from now, considering that most will suffer increased premiums, decreased rights, while careless drivers see their rates drop and their benefits rise. So obviously he's got away with words.
I don't know if there's a reason, but my insurance went up $50 yesterday. So I think
a month or a year.
Yeah. So they said
a month.
Yeah, a month.
Jeez.
So they said it was because of location, because I recently moved, and then I didn't get around to changing my address of my actual insurance. But Ryan, I still live on the south side. I moved like 7 minutes from where I live now.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was crazy. They said, hey, your address has been updated. Your insurance is now $50 more a month. I couldn't believe it. So
okay, yeah. I think and listen, we want to get into the live chat on this because we knew it was going to be hopping, powered by Park Power, and there's a ton going on. So we're going to get to your comments on this. I'm curious to know where people land on this. This announcement hasn't even happened yet, but it's expected to go down in the next day or so. You can also send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com. There could be an auto insurance element to the flamethrower coming up on Friday's episode presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton Insurance. We should throw to you for the odd sort of like impromptu flamethrower. I had a guy in front of me at Springsteen last night that I think might write a flamethrower about us.
We got to chat about that.
Yeah, we'll chat about that. We got a whole bunch to talk about. But first, why don't we head out to the mountains every Wednesday, courtesy of our friends at Tourism Jasper. And I want to give a shout out to everybody at the TIA conference. That's the Tourism Industry Association of Alberta. It was my honor and pleasure yesterday to moderate 3 of their forums back to back to back, including a sit down, about an hour conversation with Alberta NDP leader Naheed Nenshi. I'll give you some insights on that in just a quick second. I saw Randy chirping me in the chat on some assertions I've made about Smith's popularity. But listen, now I'm dragging political commentary into MyJasper Memories, and that is totally inappropriate, everybody.
Fail.
So
Don't do it.
I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it. I'll get back to that in just a quick second. But I want to tell you right now that everybody at the TIA conference, and we're talking about tourism industry professionals from across the province, is super excited that Marmot Basin is getting set to open its doors again. The lifts are going to be running, my friends, on Friday, November 22nd, which is super exciting for a number of reasons. Number one, everybody loves Marmot Basin. You can just absolutely shred. In my mind, I love the wide open nature of this. I love the design of it. I love that they keep adding and upgrading lifts and runs, but also Jasper, everybody. Jasper's back, and that includes Marmot Basin. They're going to be fully operational this winter. None of their infrastructure, thank God, was damaged in the fire, and it has definitely been a huge effort to get the ski area ready for the season. But their crews, among the best in the business, have been working tirelessly to get Marmot ready, and they're really, really excited to welcome skiers and boarders back to the slopes. So they've just got that new chairlift installed last season, Johnny, the Knob Quad, which is like beautiful. It provides access to some of the very best high alpine advanced terrain in the Rockies. They've got above average snowfall right now in the upper mountain. I know everybody's paying attention to what this season's going to look like. Snow-wise, well, the Knob area is a must ride for advanced skiers and riders. If you're out there over New Year, you're going to see me on that chair. Don't miss out. You know, you can ski for half price every day at Marmot, all season long. You just got to pick up the Marmot Escape card, and the price remains unchanged. I mean, they could bump this up, but they haven't. They want it to be affordable for everybody, so they haven't touched that price. It's still $99, if you can believe it. And once you have the card, you can pay half price every single day with no blackouts. Plus, they've got their family package back this year. You can purchase it online only. But get this is $329 for 2 adult and 2 child lift tickets. What a great deal for families, $329. That's like how much it is for like burgers somewhere else these days. Not at Marmot Basin.
Insurance.
Marmot's like, can you please not drag auto insurance into our...
We did it again.
We did. We can't help ourselves. If you are planning a getaway, midweek is the best time to visit if you can make it work at Marmot. Of course, they've got a ton of available rooms out there. And if you plan on visiting on the weekends or holidays, want to remind you, obviously, make sure that you book in advance. And a lot of people are asking about services and amenities in Jasper. They've got a ton of restaurants and bars open. Like I said yesterday, hanging out at Taya, really, really wonderful to connect with these. I've got to actually sit and talk to people like the mayor of Jasper is there, Richard Ireland, some of the hospitality entrepreneurs. Mikey was there from Evil Dave's Grill. He's the chair of Tourism Jasper. Everybody's
Amazing.
there. Their faces are bright. They're optimistic. Obviously, real life, some of it sucks. But guess what? Jasper is bouncing back, and a big part of that this winter is going to be at Marmot Basin. You can check out skimarmot.com for more details, including, of course, picking up your lift tickets. And don't forget, of course, about that Marmot Escape card and the family package. Again, all of it at skimarmot.com. MyJasper Memories is presented weekly here on Real Talk by our friends at Tourism Jasper.
Nothing better, man, than hanging out in a chalet or on one of those balconies when you're on the hill.
That's the best, man.
I know we're talking about Jasper, but I know it's in another province, so it's not competing. But one of my favorite memories is just hanging out in Whistler, walking through, it always, even if it's January or February, it still reminds me of the holidays, that little glistening of snow coming down. You got people walking around with coffee, hot chocolate, the runny noses, have a couple beers and some food after you get off the mountain. There's nothing better. And I'm glad none of that part of the economy in Jasper was affected.
That was big time. And one of my favorite pictures of all time of my little guy Wyatt. He's 9 now. The two of us hanging out, and if you know Marmot well, there's this beautiful outdoor patio that kind of overlooks some of the quads right at the base of the mountain. And he's got a hot chocolate going, and I've got a Corona going, and I was just like, this is heaven on earth, man.
It's the best.
This is the absolute best.
Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah, I want to crack on some Vamp Fashions in the live chat right now. Here's that I was hosting the Taya conference yesterday, back to back panels, and says,
B2B.
Oh yes, he says, socializing with Nenshi and slagging Premier Smith. Of course, this isn't the commie hour. Number one, weird comment.
Very weird.
Number two, you're here. Yeah. What are you doing? Number three, it was interesting to talk to Naheed Nenshi yesterday. Nicole Goring joined him as well. She's their tourism and sports shadow minister. A big part of the Taya conference, which is cool too, is that they get political representation in from the Conservatives, from the NDP, and then they bring in industry folks and commentators as well. So there was a really interesting roundtable, kind of a panel that I moderated on the Jasper wildfire, but also had some political commentary with pollster Janet Brown. As I introduced her to the room yesterday, she's kind of like this Serena Williams of political polling in Alberta. And Dr. Duane Bratt, who last joined us, he's the political scientist out of Calgary at Mount Royal University. Joined us. Yeah, he last joined us the morning after the American election. He was kind of part of our comprehensive coverage there.
I'm part of the
check
Bratt
out that
pack.
episode. Bratt pack. We need to make T-shirts for him. Interesting, though, to hear Janet Brown talking about Smith, Premier Smith, and her popularity. I saw Randy in the chat here when I mentioned I say to Mark, like, she's got 91.5% support. And I know for some people that's just like driving you crazy. And a lot of people, Smith's loudest critics, want to take away from those numbers. You want to say, well, that's because you had to pay to be there and it's the AGM and it was a limited number. And I saw Randy in the chat saying, oh, please, that's like 4,000 people. Give me a break. And sure. But the fact of the matter is, she hit it out of the park, and the same folks that are criticizing the 91.5%, if it was 50%, would be loving it, right? And would be talking about it. Point being, we talked to Janet, who does a ton of polling, public polling, and she's proven to be very reliable over the years about Smith's actual popularity in the province. Like, outside of the leadership review, outside of the AGM, how politically popular is Danielle Smith right now, writ large, across the province, talking about 4.5, almost 5 million people. Where does her popularity stand? Now, some people hearing this, when you even hear her name, it's going to drive you crazy. You're going to say she's not popular in our house. That's just a fact, and that may be true in your orbit. But Janet Brown on the record yesterday, and I guess I'm breaking the rules a tiny little bit. We're really not supposed to say much outside of that room, what was said during the panel. But I will say this because it was striking. Janet Brown of Janet Brown Opinion Research says she hasn't seen an Alberta premier, caveat, a conservative Alberta premier, this popular since Ralph Klein.
Really?
And she's talking about province-wide. Now, that doesn't mean that every single Albertan thinks that she's great and they're throwing sort of like rose parades and spreading petals of flowers onto the sidewalk to welcome Danielle Smith to their, I'm just trying to come up with some sort of a metaphor here. But it was kind of a striking comment. Now, there was like the sort of the 2015 Orange Crush, Rachel Notley surges, the Notley crew. There was a wave of popularity there. But when it comes to actual political polling, Janet Brown says that Danielle Smith right now is polling about as high as Ralph Klein was during his heyday, which says something significant. At the same time, we just heard 15, 20 minutes ago on this show, Mark McCourt, who is an ardent conservative, a conservative supporter. He picks on one issue. Mark's issue is auto insurance. Other folks will have other areas of focus. Popularity can be waning, man. Popularity can be fickle.
Sure.
Politicians have seen it evaporate quickly before it happens. So it'll be interesting to see how this auto insurance story lands.
Yeah. It's crazy that we had this show today because I literally got letter in the mail and email yesterday. Your insurance is going up $50. I was like, why? And so, yeah, this is real life. I want to hear from real talkers, too. If you're seeing a bump in your insurance this early, let us know in the chat today. Powered by our friends at Park Power.
Yeah, James in the chat, quite right. Oh, he's watching us on YouTube this morning. He says, don't forget, insurance is a pool. It's not just vehicles, right? He says all insurance. Losses in other areas, like wildfires, like floods, is being offset by your auto premiums. Could very well be true. I'm not an expert in the space, but it seems to make sense. Super Chat Ken says, if Danielle Smith promises rates will go back down by 2027, next election year, he says, take it with the same trust as the personal income tax reduction that she promised during the 2023 election. Ken's not wrong to bring that up. That still hasn't been introduced, and I know people are looking for it. For me, it's like losing the right to sue. Canadians typically, or generally speaking, aren't like litigious by nature.
Yeah.
We sort of differ from our American neighbors in that sense, generally speaking. In America, it kind of feels like you're going to get sued no matter what for anything. But if need be, knowing that you have the right to sue is kind of a, I don't know if I call it reassuring, but it's an option you want to believe is there.
Sure.
And I think losing the right to sue, to me, that doesn't, I don't know. That just, I'm just a civilian. I'm just an everyday person, but that to me doesn't sound like a good step for the general public.
Me either, yeah.
Doesn't sound like you're protected in the public, so I don't know. Justin says insurance companies recoup their losses at the expense of regular drivers. He says, I shouldn't have to pay increased premiums in Edmonton for fires or hail elsewhere in the province. I
Fair
guess.
Fair point.
I don't know. I mean, this brings back. We've had this debate on the show before. I remember this. We had a sort of a debate back and forth on things like floodplain insurance or neighborhoods in certain cities or certain jurisdictions. You see it across the country. You see it in Calgary where they're building houses on floodplains where people are living in areas where you know that natural disaster is likely. But what does that ultimately mean? I mean, we were just talking about Jasper or Fort McMurray or Slave Lake or anybody that was near the Chuck Egg fire a couple years ago. Like, what if all of a sudden you're living in or near boreal forest, for example, or if you're living south of Calgary in a so-called hailstorm alley, or you're living what are we implying here? Is it fair that if you live, in the middle of nowhere, and generally speaking, statistics show that natural disasters don't tend to touch down in your area until they do? Do you deserve to pay less, and do you deserve to pay way more? I mean, we've seen in California, some insurers.
I was just going to bring that up.
They've lifted coverage.
Yeah.
There are major insurers in the United States that will not do home insurance in California anymore.
On both shores, Florida, Long Island.
So what happens
the coastal
then?
regions,
So what happens if you get into a situation where insurers go, we flat out, and let's say they're not doing it for optics, they're not doing it to sway public opinion, they're not doing it to justify, cranking up their rates. Let's say they actually, based on business bottom lines, say, we're leaving. We will not insure you if you live here. Then what?
I know. Yeah. And it's getting really bad in the States, but I will throw in the caveat that the people who are living on the shoreline of California and Long Island and all these places in Florida, they probably have, a little more money, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be open to getting insurance. But we're seeing it more and more, especially with climate change. I know that has nothing to do with auto insurance, but like disaster insurance, like with climate change,
100%.
Some of the shorelines, they're just saying, hey, these places are receding. In 5 to 10 years, we cannot guarantee you insurance on your home or on your beach properties, right?
I don't think that there's any climate change denier that's working for an insurer right now in risk abatement and management. Like I've hosted this event for years and years. It's called the Alberta Emergency Management Agency, the AEMA. You can Google it if you want to learn more about what they do. It's actually a fascinating organization. They were represented yesterday on the panel about the wildfire, and they've talked about how they've been forecasting as best they can the future of disasters and the reality of these so-called 100-year storms or 100-year disasters that now seem to be happening every 3 years, and what that means for insurance rates, and it's bonkers.
Yeah,
it is really bonkers. I want to shout out Alberta Ganger, $5 in the super chat on YouTube. Thanks very much. We appreciate you. Says poor insurance companies get to raise premiums by 10%, but minimum wage earners get absolutely nothing. That is a fantastic point. When we're talking about cost of living, man, you talk about seniors on fixed income. You talk about people like the minimum wage earners or the low wage earners, and you start talking about stuff where you go, oh, it's a 10% bump here, it's a 5% bump there. The average Canadian is looking at inflation around, whatever it is, 6%. Borrowing now is up, 4% higher than it was 3 years ago. Some of these numbers, you look at how it chips away.
Well, Ryan, it's
somebody's paycheck.
It's the little numbers. If you look at your big stuff you have to pay every month, you already know that number. It's the same every month.
Yeah.
But when I get to the end of the month, the thing that really hits my bank account the most, I open it, I'm like, why is there $200, $300, $400, $500 missing from my account? It's all the little things that you pay for, the little things like, your subscriptions, this and that. And then all those things, along with insurance and all our, essentials, necessities, and all our electricity, whatever, they're all going up just a little bit. And when you look at that final tally at the end of the month, you're like, man, what do I do this week?
I don't know.
Maybe I'll just buy money till Friday till I get, or buy food till Friday till I get paid, and then fill the fridge, right? So it's slowly, like, even today I'm talking about the $50. When I saw it, I'm like, okay, whatever. But like, it's $50. That's a huge bump in car insurance for one little ding for. And so
Lou says, I care about injured people, not lawyers. And obviously, like I try to obviously, acknowledge that. And I think Mark acknowledges himself. He's in the business of injury law. Like, the more lawsuits or the more people that he represents, the better he does. That doesn't mean that he's not providing a service, right? Like, yes, obviously he's making money. Everybody knows that. Everybody understands that people in injury law make money based on these types of lawsuits.
Yeah, I always think of
fact of the matter
commercials.
Yeah, I know, right?
Have you been injured?
Injury law. There's one. I don't want to start naming the companies, but there's one that's just hilarious. They're like so serious.
I know the one
people,
you're talking about.
Yeah, because nothing.
It's a shape,
Nothing
right?
is stronger than a diamond.
Yes,
these people,
I knew
and they've
it.
got like just anyway. What we should
They
be doing
look
is
so serious.
They are so serious.
Like
you
$10,000
yeah.
suits.
Those are the people that you walk up to. You're like, "What's up, man?" And they're like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah.
Nothing. I'm just Anyway, what we should do is approach them and see if they want to advertise on the show. Is what we should do. But in all seriousness, yeah, lawyers are going to make money in lawsuits. But the fact of the matter is, like, are people well represented? Are you, as a citizen, protected? Do you have the legal options you need if and when you need to sue? Like, that's the question that I'd be concerned about, right? Like, I was sitting at a I won't get too much into story time here, but sitting at a red light, I don't know, 10 years ago, just minding my own business, sitting at a red light, all of a sudden, boom, the entire car just explodes, right? Whole rear windshield shatters, like the whole back of my car just absolutely blown up by somebody. Probably texting, never admitted it, but I don't know how you rear end me in an F-250 rear ends me, by the way. I was lucky I was okay for the most part. But just like boom, all of a sudden it's like I had to go through the whole thing. And this is my own personal experience, okay? So take it for what it's worth. But like, I experienced that whole sort of cap type situation where they're like, Alberta has this cap and whatever. And like, yeah, your back's like an absolute mess. My back still is a mess. And they offer you whatever it is, Johnny. At the time, I think it was like $4,800, and I had to like exercise my options. I'm like, I know for a fact, and this has proven itself to be true over the years. I'm like, I know for a fact I'm going to be spending thousands of dollars on physio alone, right? And never mind like massages, never mind all the sorts of things you need to do when you sustain a lower back injury. Never mind people that have head injuries, never mind people that are paralyzed, never mind all kinds of things, right? I had to fight for it. I had to go get a lawyer. I had to go through, the whole process. And it was good that was an option that was available to me, because that whole cap situation, I think a lot of people sign off. You take your $4,500 or whatever it is, because that's what they tell you you're capped at. Before you know it, man, you've already spent that in a year on physio, and you're going to be shelling out for years to come. It's not a good situation for people.
Well, I'll open a little window here. About 3 months ago, I got in a little fender bender. I was driving behind someone, closer than I should, but not fast. And an older man in a wheelchair came out in the street. I don't know if it was an accident or he was rolling. And the woman in front of me slammed on her brakes, and I just slid just a bit and dinged her, right?
Yeah.
And we got out, we talked, we looked at her car, my car, none on mine, a little dent on hers. And I said, here's my insurance, here's everything. She said, you know what? The way insurance is going, like, I'll just get it fixed. And I was like,
you just paid for it, right?
Oh, well, no, she didn't even say that. She's like, I don't want to even, it wasn't a huge dent. It was like a little indent. I shouldn't say dent, little indent, like a pin, She's like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wow, this is something I got to bring up on the show but I told her the same thing. I said, hey, if you get it fixed, you get it bumped out or whatever, the dent fixed, I will pay for it. But this is reflective of how people are thinking these days. They would rather take the hit themselves than go through insurance, because they know
100%.
Regardless if it was her fault or me, obviously I hit her from behind, so it's going to be my fault. She still doesn't want to go through insurance because it is so crazy right now. And all these little things are going to play on Danielle Smith and her popularity and her base, because right now, yeah, they may be fired up about all these policies and everything, but I don't see any expenses coming down since she's come to power. I don't see life getting any easier for the average Edmontonian, the average Albertan. I don't see things getting any cheaper. And
don't worry, John. Pierre Poilievre is going to axe the tax. Everything's going to be fixed.
One comment I want to read, because we got our TikTok chat here. We're streaming on 7 platforms now.
Hit it up.
And I love that people are commenting on TikTok. This relates to Danielle Smith. Olson Ranch on TikTok says the bigger issue with Danielle's base will be opening up the Water Act if done wrong. And we talk about water and Canada's water and how everybody wants it all the time on the show, Ryan.
Yeah. Larry in our live chat says, I'd love to hear the other side of the story. Larry, we know you got you covered. Obviously, I want to let you know that we do have, we haven't nailed down a date yet, but we're corresponding with the Alberta Automobile Insurance Rate Board, which is another interview we're going to do. We'll talk to their executive director. They regulate insurer rating programs. So like when insurers want to raise their rates, they've actually got to apply to the AIRB, and their kind of mandate is to educate consumers about auto insurance. So, they're established to be a factual, non-biased resource about auto insurance, talking about Alberta. So we'll get their take. I would imagine in the week following next, we should let people know we're taking a week off. We got some work to do around the studio.
We've done a lot of work here
construction
this week,
work.
so.
We're going to get it done, which is pretty cool, and also just spend some time with our families. And so this Friday, and then we'll keep you posted. I would suggest go to ryanjesperson.com and just click on the connect link, subscribe to our email, and then we'll bring you up to speed on the future of Real Talk coming up over the next few weeks. But I appreciate that from Lauren. Says he wants the other side of the story. I know I keep talking about this TAIA conference that I was hosting yesterday at the Edmonton Convention Center, but a lady comes up to me and she says, hey, you did an interview a few weeks ago on this wolf trapping contest.
Yeah.
I said, yeah.
Wolf kill contest.
Well, I mean, that's not what they're calling it. I can't remember what they're calling it, but it was, basically they're looking for the biggest wolves. Whoever can trap snag the biggest wolf wins a belt buckle. Not everybody loves it, but also some folks recognize that trapping has a long history and is connected to tradition and yada yada yada. We'll litigate this stuff on the show. Point is, she comes up to me, she says, I do communications for the Alberta Trappers Association.
Oh.
And she says, we would appreciate a spot on the show. And I said, not only are you welcome to join? I said, we would love to have you on the show. Obviously, the whole point and the reason why more and more people are subscribing to Real Talk all the time is because you're going to get different perspectives on the story. Yeah. You're going to get a fair shake on it. And so expect to hear from the Alberta Trappers Association about that wolf trapping contest coming up, let's say the next few weeks. These conversations happen on Real Talk with the support of amazing partners, and that includes the family-owned business that is Friesen Brothers, an absolute institution across the province of Alberta. Still, Alberta-grown, Alberta-owned, and gift buying. I want to talk to you about that. It's easier with Friesen Brothers hand-packed gift boxes. They've got you covered this Christmas. All items carefully chosen to suit all tastes, all budgets, or you can customize them to a theme, a person, an occasion. Your gift box can be a perfect gift for somebody who has everything. You know that one person on your list super tough to buy for? You can find more information at friesen.com/gifts. The team at Kubi Renewable Energy is hiring through the winter months because this spring they're getting set to roll out their busiest installation season in company history. That's going to be happening across Western Canada, which means if you're already living in Kamloops, Lethbridge, Calgary, or Edmonton, or you're willing to base yourself out of one of those 4 city centers, there could be an opportunity for you. If you have your ticket, if you're a certified ticketed electrician, maybe an apprentice right now looking for your first gig, maybe you're working in sales, office management, whatever. This team is growing gangbusters, the fastest growing solar company in Canada. You can learn more by visiting the careers link at kubienergy.ca. We're so proud to be partnering with UCAN Youth Services. This is a new partnership that we've rolled out just this month, and we're thrilled to be supporting the work that they're doing, a nonprofit charitable organization based out of Alberta's capital city, dedicated to help young people get out of harm's way and onto a path of economic independence. They've got a whole bunch of different programs, not to mention their comedy nights, not to mention all kinds of cool events that they do. But check out the work. In particular, I want to talk to you about the Verto Project. This is designed a unique 20-week pre-employment program that helps young people, we're talking age 18 to 24, transition back into school or into the workforce. They take 12 youth accepted into the intake every single 8 weeks, and then, let me tell you, life-changing stuff is happening. The Verto Project, that's Latin for turnaround or change. You can learn more at ucan.ca. And I want to give a shout out to California Closets. How fun to run into Cam yesterday at the Springsteen show. We'll talk about that in just a second. Cam, the president of California Closets in the province of Alberta. I mean, obviously that guy is just an ambassador for custom closets and storage solutions for the entire home. He and his team have honestly changed the game when it comes to custom storage solutions. The cool part about it, though, I know that when some people hear about California closets, they see all these fancy videos that we show on our YouTube channel, and they think, I could never afford a California closet.
Budgets.
They can work with all kinds of budgets. They do simple stuff all the way up to the extravagant stuff. And the consultation's free, so you got nothing to lose. You can book that free consultation online today at californiaclosets.ca.
All right, so how was The Boss last night?
Yeah, it was pretty cool, man.
3-hour show.
Bruce Springsteen. I mean, he's,
At my age.
was he like 75 or something?
Yeah.
Looks unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds unbelievable. I mean, he's honestly, I mean, he's the boss. Like, what do you want me to say? I was counting. I was sitting in my seat and I'm counting. He has 20 members of his band.
Look at that band. We're showing some
the E Street
visuals.
Band. Like,
if you're streaming us on our visual platforms.
And he's got I mean, a relatively simple stage setup, and the music just speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm.
He still just absolutely belts it out.
Oh, yeah.
You know, no disrespect, but several years ago I saw Bob Dylan live, and I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed. It was like, he didn't quite have what he used to have. And so I was kind of wondering, what's Springsteen going to be like? Kills it. Honestly, kills it. The music is so dialed in. Obviously, the fans are going nuts. You know what I loved? But for like the last hour of the show, the encore is like an hour. Mm-hmm. So they like wrap up the show. This is like the oldest thing in concerts where they all pretend like
everybody.
They all pretend like it's ending, and everybody knows it's not ending. And then they come and they do the bow, and then everybody claps and claps, and then they make you clap for like 5 minutes, and then they come back. Springsteen basically brings everybody to the front. Everybody goes nuts, and then they just go back to their positions and keep going, right?
So what was the last song?
So they bring. Oh, I'm not the one to ask. I don't remember. I'm not good. I'm not good. There were songs he didn't play. I mean, he played "The River," which obviously I love, but like there were songs.
What was omitted?
He didn't play "Born in the USA."
I was just gonna say that. I thought "Born in the USA" would be like
people all around us.
The first encore.
The lady, like a few down from us, she was absolutely hilarious. Shout out to the folks in our row. The guy that was in front of me is probably watching today to see if I'm going to mention him. Don't worry, buddy. That's coming
maybe that's a Canada thing.
But I think the people down the road, down our row, were like, it's because of Trump. He's not playing "Born in the USA" because of Trump.
Or maybe it's because he's in Canada.
Know.
Maybe he just doesn't rock it when he's outside the States because it kind of doesn't work.
But
right?
wouldn't you expect if you're going to go see Springsteen, you're going to hear "Born in the USA"?
That's my jam.
Yeah, but I want to say this about his. I don't think I've ever seen this before at a show. Like you see it, the odd artist goes, "Can I get the house lights up?" And then they bring it up, and you go, "Wow!" And you kind of look around, and you realize all the people. For the last hour of his show, and it was a legit 3-hour show. We showed up at approximately, for people that are listening, for insights onto Springsteen when he's going to be in your city. He went on, as far as I can tell, we showed up at 8:15, and the guy in our row told us we had missed about 6 songs. So I guess he went on at 1:45.
Sure, there's 50 more. I'm good.
Yeah, it was like he's going to be here for 3 hours. I mean, he didn't open with Born in the USA, did he? But the point being, for the last say third of his show, so the last hour is a legit 3-hour show, full house lights the entire time. Like I'm talking almost, not quite, but almost as bright as though there was a hockey game going on in there. Just full lights up, and it reiterated. I don't remember the last time I saw this at a concert. Oftentimes the stage is either sort of like mid, like think in terms of where the hockey arena is, like the actual ice surface. The stage is like 2/3 of the way here, and then they have everything else blacked out. They have like curtains up, whatever. Not for the Boss. They sold every single seat in the arena.
Oh, of course.
I'm talking all the way around, plus the floor. Yeah. So you and I both know, we both worked for the Oilers. It's about 18,400 for a sellout for the Oilers. I'm going to say there were 18,400 there, plus the floor.
But they're standing, right? So they could have been close to 20.
Probably
right?
20,000, right? Full lights up for the entire final hour, and I'm just around looking like, everybody here is just vibing.
This is wild because you're like the third or fourth person I've heard that said they went to a Bruce Springsteen concert, and it literally not only changed their opinion of him as an artist, but just it was like a life-altering experience.
There were some people I talked to, friends of mine. We had some friends over here to the studio after. We're right across the street from the rink, of course, and they were all sort of DJing. Everybody was on our Spotify playing all the Springsteen songs that they didn't get to hear.
When I come in the morning, just so you guys know, Real Talkers peek behind the window, I always turn on like smooth jazz or like chill Monday
Yeah, you
mix.
put on chill music.
And
yeah.
there was just banger after banger lined up on their Springsteen and
Yeah.
Shabuzi.
Oh, we were having a great time. But so they were all sort of like filling in the blanks and playing the stuff that they didn't get to hear. But I did hear. I'm not going to pretend like I'm the biggest Springsteen fan in the world.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of respect for him, obviously. But like the real nerds, as a compliment, the real hardcores were saying that it was an unbelievable experience and a great show. And I have to concur. We had a good time.
Did he? Go ahead.
We did have a bit of a confrontation.
What? You and Springsteen?
No, not me.
Fisticuffs?
Not me and the boss.
Backstage?
So this guy in front of us. So this guy says to me, so there's 2 rows in front of us. There's these 4 dudes, and they're, I don't know, I'm gonna say age doesn't matter, but I'm just trying to paint a picture. They look like dads. They look like they got the pass to go out for the night. They look like they're like late 40s, early 50s, burly fellas, like bigger fellas, and we've been there for a couple of like. When we get into the arena, I'm like, everybody's sitting. Like it's like everyone's seated and sitting. But it's like it's a rock show, right? So these guys stand, and they're like the only 4 that are standing in the whole area, right? And I'm like, oh,
show hasn't started yet?
No. The show's underway, and these guys.
It's early.
It's a rock show. They're standing. Well, I can tell that the guy right in front of me. So these guys are 2 rows ahead. The guy right in front of me, he is so agitated, and his body language, his body position, he's shifting, and he's sort of like really like making a big deal about it. His wife is sort of like putting her hand on his shoulder, like trying to calm him, but this guy is like rattled that the dudes in front of him are standing. And so finally he taps the one guy on the shoulder, and they start to get into it, like kind of a thing, right? And he's like, I'm assuming, I didn't hear his voice, but he's like, are you gonna sit the fuck down, basically? And the guy in front is kind of like, no, like it's Springsteen and we're standing, and thank you for your concerns. That's
fair, though.
I'll take it up with the manager. So here's what I wanted to put in front of you and Real Talkers. So me and my pal, we're kind of chuckling. And we're talking about how I can see it from both perspectives. As the show's going on, I say, well, I can understand. Like, I understand why the guys want to stand. I understand, they're at a rock show. They're at Springsteen. I understand why they want to stand. And then I say to my buddy, but I also understand why this guy's pissed. Like, I kind of get that too, because he's seeing Springsteen maybe for the first time in his life. This fella's an older guy. Like, maybe he's been to 10 Springsteen shows. I don't know. But like, he wants to be there. He's out on date night with his wife. He doesn't want somebody standing. He's staring at this guy's ass, right? The guy's ass is right in his face. He'd rather be able to see the boss, right? So as we're talking about, I'm going, I can see both perspectives, and we're hashing it out. But he turns around to me and he goes, and are you going to shut the hell up? And I'm like, what?
I'm trying to help you.
He goes, I'm trying to listen to the show, and all I can hear is the 2 of you talking. And I'm like,
it's
man.
a rock concert.
And I'm looking at him. I go, buddy, it's a rock show, right? And he just, I'm like, this guy wanted to fight everybody in the section. But I kind of felt for him at the same time.
True.
I'm like, I feel like he's not maybe like at rock shows every weekend.
Yeah.
I felt like this was a pretty special occasion for him. No wonder the tickets are like $450. I mean, it was crazy. But I was like, yeah, I don't know. What do you think is etiquette at a rock show? Stand up, sit down, shut the fuck up. What's your perspective?
It depends the show. I mean, if you're going to like Slayer or something, you can't even complain. It's going to be heavy duty. Everyone's bouncing around. But I also think like the age demographic matters, and I'm not ragging on old people. Everyone thinks
here
I'm
we go,
an
twice
elder
in a week,
abuser.
twice in a week.
But like when you go to a Springsteen show, like a lot of people, they're going to be those people, Ryan, that want to, maybe they have bad knees, bad back. Maybe they're tired. They just worked 8-10 hours. They come to Springsteen at 8 o'clock. They know they're in for a 3-hour show. They're going to stand up when they hear the song they want to hear. They're going to sit the rest of the time, right? If you go down the demographic to a little less older, like if you went to Blink-182, for example, I'd see half and half. I went to Justin Timberlake. He's getting older. His demographics, a lot of older people, 30, 40, even your 50s now.
Yeah.
And I was on floor seats, and I would say half the floor was sitting down until about midway through the show when some of the vibier, dancier tracks went on. So I think the etiquette is just be nice. But here's the thing, Ryan. If you're blocking someone's view, that's always a bad thing. But I don't know, if you're sitting down and you can stand up and have a view, I don't know that it's anyone's fault. I think it's 50-50, and maybe stand up for a few songs, right? But here's the thing. You pay for a ticket at a concert. I mean, you're most likely not going to sit.
Okay.
Like a concert is for standing, dancing, vibing, unless you're at like an orchestra or some sort of thing like that, right?
Cactus Sheriff is makes a fair comment in the chat, in our YouTube live chat, says it can't have been that good of a show if there was only 4 guys standing in an entire section. Says shows I've been to are all standing. Hey, listen, this is not a reflection on Springsteen. I mean, the guy's rock solid. You can check out my Instagram stories if you want to. I was like the guy that I'm like shooting a video in a concert. I'm like, why am I doing this? Nobody ever watches videos they shoot at a concert. Stupid. Just burn it into your memory. But I did post one on Instagram if you want to check it out. It's fair to a certain degree, but I don't know, man. I felt like I will say this more than anything else. I spent about the last 45 minutes of the concert standing in the back, just kind of like leaning against a wall, chatting people up, having a beer, because it's not really my style to sit well-behaved in a row of people with my hands on my laps at a rock show. Like, I just can't really vibe that way. That doesn't work for me, but I get it.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? Did he mention the Oilers at all?
Nah,
he's in their house.
I don't think so. Not
really?
Not at the part that I heard. Not the part that I saw. No, do you think Bruce Springsteen cares about the Oilers?
I don't know. Every artist that
Bruce
comes to
Springsteen
Edmonton
is bigger than the Oilers.
Every artist that comes to Edmonton, I mean, some of them just wear the jersey, most of them, but everyone mentions them. Yeah. Are they going to win it this year? I just thought maybe
he didn't say anything. Yeah. Acute Awareness says I stood for most of the Taylor Swift concert. Nice, kind of like a casual humble brag in our chat that they were at the Swift concert. Nice. Hope it was great. Says, but I had to sit for a bit, and the kid next to me couldn't see the entire time and ultimately had to sneak up to the front for the surprise sessions. That kind of sucks. Justin says, if you want to stand by a floor seat, I don't know if I agree, you guys. I mean, there's a bit of an etiquette, I think, when you're in a crowd and you're at an event, but also like you look at, let's say, hockey games, for example. In Europe, a buddy of mine, Dustin Johnner, played for many, many years in Europe and had a wonderful career over there. And he told me in some of the countries he played in, like they had amazing fans. He played in Switzerland and Austria and Sweden. And he's talking about these hockey fans. He played in the UK as well. He says, like, they stand the entire game.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I don't know. I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way to do it, but like if you're at an NHL game in Canada, most people don't stand the entire game, but could you fault somebody that did?
No.
I mean, is it? I don't know. I feel
maybe playoffs, like when people are really riled up, like a Game 7 or like the final round kind of thing. Like I can see people standing a lot. When the Oilers first got back in the playoffs in Rogers Place the first time, I remember from the start of the game through like the first 10 minutes of the period, everyone was on their feet. But yeah, we've been to games. That's a big no. You can't even be in the aisle. You can't even, like, if you stand up after a goal too long, people are like, sit down. I want to see the play again.
Yeah, I don't know.
Big win for Oilers last night, by the way. Ooh,
big
5-1.
win. They needed that one, man. Huge. They needed that. Jacqueline says Boston didn't play Born in the USA because Trump was elected. A lot of you say it has something to do with Trump. I don't know. Yeah. LJ says, this is amazing. I don't like going to live shows anymore because of people singing louder than the band. I didn't come here to listen to your horrible singing, lady, says LJ.
How does that even happen?
I'm guilty. I'm guilty of singing with the band.
Turn it up to 11.
Turn it up to 11, man. Turn up the volume, turn down the suck. That's the whole point. This conversation is happening on Real Talk with the support of Athabasca University, and I wanted to put something on your radar. If you weren't aware, something really cool happened at AU back in September. Their Board of Governors approved a 10% reduction to tuition for First Nation, Métis, and Inuit students in Canada. A 10% reduction. It's part of the university's ongoing efforts to enhance access and equity for Indigenous students. You can learn more by visiting athabascau.ca/Indigenous. On the website, you can also learn more about how AU works. They've got flexible study options, more so than any other post-secondary in the country. Never mind accessibility for students around the globe, personalized learning plans, and a completely supportive community. They're doing it different. It's your education your way at athabascau.ca. And a shout out to our friends at Complete Care Restoration. They are right now having teams deployed in communities across the province of Alberta and beyond that have been impacted by natural disasters through that summer season, including floods, wildfires, and the like. Some of that smoke damage they're repairing, that's something you don't think about. You hear about these folks that the house survived, but the smoke damage is significant. That's not the type of thing you want to mess around with. You want to go to the talented and certified professionals at Complete Care Restoration. Coolest part about how they operate, they'll work directly with your insurance company. That gives you the peace of mind as you're having your property restored. You don't have to deal with all the small print, the contracts. They handle it for you. They're available 24/7. You can find them online at completecarerestoration.ca. .ca. Before we roll, we had a really, I enjoyed that conversation yesterday. We had, of course, big news out of the city of Edmonton. WestJet pumping up its seat capacity by next summer, 25% up over last summer. It's the biggest schedule that Edmonton's International Airport has ever offered. So this is a really big deal. I didn't realize that WestJet flights account for 50% of the flights into and out of Edmonton. I had no idea. So it's obviously a huge partnership. And if you missed it, on our episode just one day ago, we talked to the CEOs of Edmonton International and WestJet, the two of them, and just kind of got a sense of how that deal came around and what it means for business and the like. We got a great email from Jeff to talk@ryanjesperson.com that says, Jespo, just one quick point. It says, enjoyed the interviews. The new flights out of Edmonton aren't just good news for the Metro Edmonton region. He says more flights between Edmonton and Grande Prairie, where I live. Shout out Jeff in Grande Prairie. He says they're adding those as well. 11 flights a week between Edmonton and Grande Prairie. He says people who live in GP often need to travel to Edmonton for things like Edmonton for like medical appointments, other services that just aren't available in our city. He says there used to be several flights a day between Grande Prairie and Edmonton, but since the pandemic, I wouldn't have realized this, Jeff. He says since the pandemic, just one flight a day between the two cities. That meant that flying from Grande Prairie to Edmonton required you to fly to Calgary first, geographically, pain in the ass, obviously. And he says, and then back to Edmonton. Hopefully these new flights will eliminate the need for that. So that was just one person's take on how that flight schedule changed, and the increase in the offerings is going to impact them on a daily basis. You can check out that interview under the highlights link on our YouTube channel. Johnny has it well organized there. You can watch our shorts, you can watch our highlights, you can watch our full episodes, and we appreciate everybody that subscribes to the Real Talk YouTube channel. As we wrap for today, I want to let you know a couple of things. Our next episode, that'll be the 21st of November, will be an exclusive, a sit down with, I think, somebody who's going to be a pretty big player in the next Edmonton mayoral election. They're getting set to throw their hat into the ring, and they're going to do it live on Real Talk. Don't miss that episode on the 21st. Plus, registration is open for the Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic. Check out ryanjesperson.com under the events link. We hope to see you February 2nd in St. Albert.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harman Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.